another amazing session of Spirit Sessions of View of the Light. We find the most interesting guests, and it makes this show so much fun. So welcome to each and every one of you, our Spirit Sessions family. Today we have an amazing guest, Ray Catania. Is that right? Or Catania? Yeah. Catania? And I was reading the bio, and it's so amazing. He's an author of 2 amazing books. Let's see. You Are Still Alive, Act Like It. And then the first one was Atheist and The Afterlife, because he's got stories to share with us. Welcome to Spirit Sessions, Ray.
Teresa, thank you so much. Rhonda, thank you as well. I'm so honored to be with you today. Thank you.
That's awesome, Ray. Can you tell us how you started down this amazing path? Because I have a feeling that this wasn't your original plan when you started.
Oh, no, it certainly wasn't. I started out, I had an unconventional beginning for sure. My childhood wasn't, one that we aspired to. It was a little rough and a lot of trauma, drama, and turmoil there. But, I guess that I learned a lot from that, even though I went through a period of being where I felt that chaos, because coming from a home of chaos, I took that chaos with me when I started to grow up. And in my teens, in my 20s, chaos was my comfort zone, right? So if it wasn't a chaotic situation, I would try to make it one, or I would just look for one. And those were the situations that I felt comfortable in. And that's very abnormal, to say the least. But what it did was it put me in more traumatic situations. And when the more we experience trauma, I find the more often we try to disassociate from what's happening in that moment, and we try to push our minds out of our body. We try to make that separation so that we don't feel what's happening to us physically in that moment. So I've had so many situations where I've been very, very close to death, and I would leave my body because I no longer have control over what's happening, right? There were times when I was almost beaten within inches of my life, and I would leave so I don't feel the pain. And I started to learn how to make this separation. Wow. And eventually, when I was 20 years old, I had an actual NDE, and that was caused by a freak accident. Nothing that really, it was nothing more than a fire that was in my home. And I was still living at home with my parents. I was 20 years old, and there was a gas leak from the stove in the kitchen. My bedroom was located just above that. So my bedroom was above the kitchen, and the natural gas from the stove was rising all night, and I was breathing it in. And we don't know for how many hours, but so when my mother woke up, she turned the stove on, I guess to make breakfast or what have you. And there was this big ball of fire, and it caught the wall on fire, and there was smoke, but it was contained by my father in a fire extinguisher, the way I heard the story. But I'm still in bed, and I hear the fire trucks, and I hear the police cars, everything, and I hear the commotion, and I know I've got to get up and get out of bed because something's going on downstairs. I don't know what it is yet. And I try to get up, and this is the first sign that something's really wrong with me, because I can't feel my legs at all. And they feel like they weigh thousands of pounds, and I can't move them. My head was the same. I couldn't get it off the pillow. And I was trying to pull myself to the side of the bed with my arms to the best of my ability. And I hear the sirens. I hear the walkie-talkies. I hear everything downstairs. And I'm really trying to get out and trying to get out. Finally, I get to the edge of the bed, and I tumble out, and I hit face first on the ground. And now normally you hit face first, you feel it, right? Now I knew that I hit face first, but I didn't feel any pain. And that was the first sign that something was different, aside from the fact that I couldn't feel my legs. When I hit face first, there was no pain. And that's because in that moment, I wasn't in my physical body any longer. I was above it. and I was above it and in a corner, almost like a neutral corner. So if you picture my room as a perfect square, which it was, I was in a neutral corner, like where they tell you to go, you know, in a boxing, when the guy gets knocked out, they throw you to a neutral corner. Okay, so I'm in that neutral corner looking down at my lifeless body, laying face down, bleeding on the floor. And
Wow.
this doesn't scare me at all, because I actually felt great. I mean, like, the feeling was confusing, but it was very, very euphoric. And there's
Wow.
across from me and right adjacent on the other side of the room, so corner to corner, from that corner shining down on me is a huge cone-shaped white light. And this light is not just a light. This light is love, painlessness, euphoria, every beautiful emotion you could possibly imagine is within this light. And my energy, which is all that's left of me at this point, is commingling with the light. And the feeling is amazing. I mean, it's just, there's really no words to describe how good this feels. And I wanted to go further into the light. And so I did. I started to go in. And there was a being at the end of the light who was assuring me that it was okay to come into the light. He or she said, it's okay, Ray, come into the light. It's okay. And so I proceeded in, excuse me. And the further I got in, sorry, the further I got in, the more the euphoria would increase. So I wanted to keep going all the way to the other side. I wanted to see what was at the other side. And I proceeded to go. And this is what interrupts me, is that my father kicks the door in, races over to my lifeless body, picks me up, and starts screaming for the paramedics. And he's crying and he's distraught. And he's like, my son, help my son. Now, to be honest, you know, my father and I didn't have a great relationship. You know, it was part of that. He was part of that chaos. You know, he had a lot to do with that chaos. So to see him loving me like that really touched me. You know, like, he never showed that kind of emotions toward me. I didn't know he had them. So when I saw that, I wanted that. I wanted to go back so I could have that. And I more or less asked if I could. I asked the being, I said, you know, I can't leave him like that. Can I go back? I made it about him, like I'm negotiating or something, right? But at the end of the day, I'm asking if I can go back. And I do go back. But when I wake up, I'm not in his arms anymore. I'm on the floor, and I'm in the living room now, which is the first floor. And the paramedics are on top of me, you know, with their tools and, you know, trying to resuscitate me. And I'm like, guys, I'm fine. You know, get off me. What are you doing? And I'm trying to get my bearings, right? And I was like, I feel great. You don't have to do whatever it is you're doing. You stop. I'm telling them to stop. And they're like, son, you're not okay. You're seriously not okay. And I'm like, I think I am, because I feel great. And I said, did you see the light? Did you hear the voice? And they're looking at each other like, okay, this guy's nuts, right? And I shut up because I don't want to wind up in the wrong hospital that I can't get out of, right? So I just let them do their thing, and they take me to the hospital. I'm released the next day, and I'm trying to make sense of what just happened. I chose to rebel against my parents' religion, which was Catholicism, because of the chaos I came out of. So I had no belief in anything up until this point. And even after I had the NDE, I knew it was this beautiful, amazing experience, but I didn't know it was an NDE. I'm 20. We don't have computers yet. There are no cell phones yet. There's no place for me to take this information and say, hey, has anyone else ever experienced anything like this? When I said it to my mother, she told me I was crazy. So everybody I tell, I'm crazy. So I have to now put this away into the crazy box. And this is how I do it. I say, well, okay, the white light was probably the sun. The sun was coming through the window. It was shining on me. And I inhaled so much gas that I was hallucinating the being and everything else. And so I justify it away to myself and I accept it as not real. And I put it away, and it's easier for me to do that. And I remain the atheist that I decided to be. So now, but here's what happens. In my 20s, I start to go through a series of events that being shows up again.
Oh.
And he's always there at a time when I am about to be killed, or I am in crosshairs where I could die. And remember, I'm putting myself there. So I worked for shady characters. I worked for bad people. There were shootouts right in front of me. There were times when I had to get out of a situation. And I remember one in particular, I was hiding. I was under a bar. We were in a nightclub. It was after hours. And I hear pop, 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 pop. I know what guns sound like. I'm under the bar and the being says, side door, side door, side door. And I'm like, I can't get to the side door. I don't know who's talking to me, but I'm just like, I can't get to the side door. I'm like paralyzed with fear. And eventually I just take the advice because I have no other way to go. So I make a run for this side door. I know I'm going to be seen by the shooter or shooters, but I get through it. And then there's another long corridor I have to run down. It's like 40, 45 feet before I get to the next door, which is a fire exit, and I get outside. And obviously I made it. And don't you know, the really strange part, if all of that's not strange, the really strange part is I parked my car right outside that door, and I've never in 7 years parked my car there. I have my own parking spot, and it's on the other side of the building, but I chose not to use it. I chose to put it there. Why?
Oh.
Right? So I get in the car, and I remember dropping I'm shaking. I'm trying to get the keys in, and I'm shaking, and I'm dropping, and then I just drove, and and I got away. But here's this being again, making his presence known, telling me how to get out of the situation. And there's numerous stories like this in the book. I think there's like 8 and 4 in each book or something like that, where he shows up right at the time of my death when I am doomed and gets me out of it. And I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not special. I'm not chosen. I'm not any different than anybody else. I think that the only difference is that when I was young, because I isolated myself and to get away from everything that was happening in my house, I would hide for hours and I would stare at nothing but a wall. And
sort of meditation.
Exactly. It was like 6 hours of meditation every day until my parents would go to sleep, and then I could come out. Otherwise, I would not come out.
So do you think this was like your guardian angel? Like, I think everyone has one, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, I call him my guide, but yeah, how you could call him an angel, a guide. We're all using different terminologies, but it's the same thing. Yeah, that's this person, or not a person anymore. In fact, I don't see him as a him or a her. I just see lines. I just see energy.
Yeah. That's how I see him.
That's the best way. Yeah. And I think, that's a pretty big differential in the 4th realm and the 5th realm. And I'm just using that terminology, assuming that this one we're going to call the 3rd because others have called it the 3rd. Right. And I have seen, well, I'll give you a little more to the story. So after the NDE, I move out of my house. Then I get my own apartment for the first time, maybe 21, 22 years old. And I'm all excited. This is going to be great. And, we're going to have parties all the time and girls, and it's going to be awesome. None of that ever happened. From the second I moved into this place, it was like it was filled with people, and there was no one there but me. And I could feel the energy of what I now know was the deceased. But then I had no idea what that was. And it was filled. So imagine a guy who can see energy as a kid, right? Because I was doing this 6-hour a day meditation like yogis do in the East, right? and I cross over because I have an NDE and I come back, I'm a direct portal. Like they're just whoosh, right through me and hanging around me. And I don't know what I'm seeing and what's happening, but I can feel the room. Like I can feel energies. I can feel emotions. I can feel like I'm being looked at. And I see lines crossing the room, and I see, like, I would turn around like there's somebody behind me and there's nobody there.
Right.
And this led to, I couldn't sleep. This led to the worst case of insomnia I've ever experienced. And I had a 1-year lease there and I could not sleep. So I started using drugs and alcohol, massive amounts of drugs and alcohol to go to sleep.
To dumb you down.
And eventually became dependent upon those things. So 10 months into the lease, I can't take it anymore. I mean, it's bad. The TV goes on and off. The phone would be disconnected every time I tried to make a call. And these are landlines, not even cell phones yet. So anything electrical, they would just mess with. And I remember I would call the maintenance guy. Can you please look at this, look at that? And he's like, kid, there's nothing wrong with your place. Don't ever call me again. You're crazy. So here it is again. I'm crazy, right? I'm back to being crazy. You tell me this enough times, I'm going to start to believe that I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm leaning towards, insanity, I think. And then I moved to another place, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be the place. This is going to be great. That place was haunted maybe or whatever. And I'm using, haunted. I'm an atheist. I'm talking about haunting. That doesn't even make sense. But I move into the next place and it happens there too.
Right.
So I start to realize the houses aren't haunted, Ray's haunted. And I equate that to being insane at this moment in time. That's why the first book is The Atheist and The Afterlife, because I moved from atheism to eventually having to concede to the fact that this stuff is real.
Wow.
And that's the beginning of the story. And it wasn't.
Fascinating.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And it wasn't until I got married and I had 2 kids that they really changed my life, because I couldn't live the lifestyle I was living anymore. I had to get clean and sober. Couldn't work for shady characters. Couldn't put myself in bad situations. I now had a reason to live. I had 2 boys out of that marriage. The marriage fell apart, but I still had the kids. And so I checked myself into rehab. I went back to college. I got a degree. I got a fantastic job, which led to another great job. And I worked my way up and I did very well. And I managed to find a way to get along with the beings and not really acknowledge them. I knew they were there, but I didn't let them bother me. Okay. So we kind of had like a ceasefire. You don't bother me. I won't bother with you. We'll just pretend it's not real and we'll just get about our lives. And many, many years goes by. And, I had dated a little bit here and there, but nothing serious. I never wanted to bring another woman into my son's lives because, I didn't know how they would react. But eventually they got older. And I decided, well, maybe it's a time for me to settle down, right? And now I'm in my 40s and I'm at the top of my game as far as work goes. Things are great. I still have the energy around me, but like I said, we're all getting along. And I go online to date somebody because that's how it's done now, right? And I'm going through the various websites and I come across one. And when you go onto these websites, they show you like 4 people in your area, 4 women that live around me to entice me to join the site, right? So when I got to one of those sites, there was 4 examples, quote unquote, and one of them just stood out. I mean, I looked at her and I said, that's her. Oh my God, that's my wife. That's my wife. And I knew right then and there that we knew each other. Like I've never seen her before physically that I know of, but I feel like I know her, right? It's a very strange feeling. And so I joined the site, I email her and I send 1 email. That's it. And I tell her this and I'm like, so you don't know me. My name is Ray, but I'd like to introduce myself because you're my wife and you just don't know it yet. And so would you like to get married? And she thinks I'm completely nuts, right? And emails me back. Right? So it was my pickup line. And she just thought I was out of my mind and hysterical, you know, and so she got back. I actually, in the first book, I copied and pasted the way I actually said it, which was a little longer and a little more funny. And she's like, "You're absolutely hysterical. Who the heck are you?" And we got together. We are married to this day. I was right. She is my soulmate. There's no question about it. But it was when we first started dating that things get weird again, because up until then I can see the energy, but it's just lines, like I said, and I could feel it. But when I meet her, after a couple of months of dating, this new thing happens where a movie screen, what I call it, opens up in my mind, in my third eye, right here. It's like in my mind, this movie screen opens up, and what's playing on the screen is talking to me. And in this very first case, it's a man. So there's a man on my movie screen, big guy, husky guy, beard, mustache, thick black hair. And he says the same sentence over and over. "I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot."
Wow.
I've never seen this man in my life. I don't know what he's talking about or who he's talking about. All I know is that I'm seeing what the energy is now taking a human form. So I'm really convinced that I'm insane. This began on a Friday. So I left work early and I said, I got a headache. I got to get out of here. I went home and I saw it a couple of more times. And the next day was Saturday. I woke up. From the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep, he was there repeating the same thing. It was like a video loop that would replay almost every hour on the hour. So persistent that I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How do I handle this? What do I do? Right? Sunday comes around. Now it feels like it's every 5 minutes. I'm sure it wasn't every 5 minutes, but it felt like it. And I can't function anymore. Like I can't drive. I can't have a conversation without losing my train of thought. There's almost nothing that I can really do. And the breaking point, I was in the store. I had to go to the store. I didn't want to leave the house, but I had to go to the store and buy some stuff and pick up some things. And I'm at the counter and I don't know what I do. I must have done something very strange, because the woman behind the counter says, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "No, I am definitely not okay." And I took my credit card back and I went back to the car and I sat in the car and I said, "Okay, it's finally come to this. I am crazy. I'm literally insane. Not crazy. I'm insane. And now I have to make preparations for my kids." I had drawn up a will. I had a DNR. I did all of that. And I wanted to make sure my brother had it. And so I called him. I said, "You got the paperwork, right?" He's like, "Yeah, what's wrong?" I said, "Just want to make sure you have everything. I do not want to be resuscitated. I do not want to be held alive. I'm going into the light." I'm thinking to myself, right? And I make sure that everything is in order. Now I've got to tell this woman I just met, who I know is my future, my wife. This is my person. And I got to tell her I'm crazy. And if the story's not crazy enough, let's top it off with the fact that she is a doctor of psychology and neuropsychology by trade.
Oh, yeah.
That's who I'm dating. So, but I kind of look for the positive here and I say, okay, so I'm going to lose her, but maybe she can refer me to somebody who can get me some help. Maybe I've got a chance of survival here, right? So I tell her, and I really, it took me a long time to get the courage, but I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, I got to level with you, something's happening. And I keep seeing this guy and he keeps saying the same thing to me. And he's a big stocky guy, beard, mustache, hair. And he says, "I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. I don't know who he is or where or what it is." And she goes, "Oh my God, it sounds like my dad."
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And I'm like, wait a minute, wait. Didn't you tell me your dad died like a decade ago? And she's like, yeah, he's dead. And I'm like, now I'm thinking, she's crazy. I need the hell out of there. Check, please. Let's go. You're nuts. You need help, lady. And she's like, no, really, relax. She goes, I've been to mediums. And I said, what the hell's a medium? And she goes, okay, let me try to explain this. I'm still gripping onto atheism to the best of my ability, right? So I'm trying to reject all of this. And she says, here's the thing. I've been to many mediums. My dad always comes through exactly the way you're saying. He's very, very, very strong. They all tell me the same thing. He will be persistent. He will be there. He will not stop talking, blah, 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 blah. And I said, but the guy I see has a beard, a mustache, the thick hair. He's a stocky guy, a big dude. The picture I saw of your dad, which you have on the mantle, is not the same guy I'm seeing. And she's like, hold on. She goes into her phone. She's, that's an old picture you saw. Let me show you what he looked like before he died. And she shows me the photo. He said, you know that guy. I mean, just my whole body just stopped. Like my heart was in my stomach. I had chills from head to toe. And I was like, you know him? That's my dad, silly. And so you're telling me that your dead dad is talking to me right now? And you're the psychologist? So she says, listen, she goes, thank God she was like that. This is how I know she was my soulmate, right? Because she was actually open to what other people would have run away from. And she says, there's a medium that's I was going to book an appointment with because she's going to be in town next week for 2 weeks only. You and I will go together. And you can tell her what you're experiencing. And you guys can like talk it out and you can see, what's going on. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you so much. I was like so relieved. And the minute I told her this, the guy was gone. He left me alone. Right? Because what I didn't know yet is that if you deliver the message, they go away.
Yeah.
I didn't know that though. So he's gone. I feel relieved. She's in acceptance of me being crazy, which is great. And okay, what have I got to lose? Let's meet with the medium. So I go in to meet with her and I say, hi, my name's Ray. She says, hi, what can I do for you, Ray? And I said, well, I'm completely insane. I see people that aren't really there. And she goes, ha, 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 have a seat. So do I. and I say, and I start to explain what I see and how I see it. And, I feel the vibrations and sometimes I see the shooting lines or the squigglies out of my eyes. And I feel like there's somebody looking at me. And then this movie screen opens up. It's like I'm in my mind, a movie screen. And she's like, stop. And I was like, what? She goes, that's exactly the way I see it too. And I was like, really? And then it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. But now,
no brain tumor.
I'm a what is this medium thing that I am now, right? Like, is that what I am? And if so, what are my obligations with that? What do I have to do with that, right? So she's like, she takes me under her wing for the first year, and she really saved my life because she taught me how to turn it on, turn it off, address it or don't address it, So this was a really, really big moment, for big turning point. Now I'm starting to turn the corner to believing that these things that have happened in my past are real and they're not all in my head. And, this is the first time I'm meeting with somebody who actually understands me. And no one, everybody, my whole life, I'm crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy. That's it. That's all I've ever heard. And you know what she said to me in confidence? She was like, my parents had me committed because they thought I was schizophrenic.
I wonder how many people are like that. Hey, Teresa?
Yeah, that's what we said.
That happens to
Yeah, I
Teresa.
got all those diagnoses. Yeah, it's
right?
true. Yeah.
And I thought that too. How many people are actually in that situation right now? I just hugged her. I was like, I was like a child. I was just weeping, like the first person. I'm approaching 50, and I've just met the first person who can validate what I am. And I was with her for one year, like I said, and then a year of being with her completely changed my life. And the following year, what I forgot to mention is that was around my birthday that I met with her. And then a year later, it's my birthday again. And my wife says to me, she goes, why don't we go away for your birthday and celebrate your birthday? And I said, okay. She goes, where do you want to go? You want to go like Bahamas? You want to go here? You want to go there? And I was like, I just want to go to the middle of the forest where there's a lot of trees. And I want to sit in the middle of the trees and I want to meditate. I don't want any people. I don't want anything. Give me an outhouse. That's all I need. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. Now I just want, my view of the world has completely changed. I see things differerently. I'm attracted to trees. I've become a tree hugger, so to speak, right? Literally, like I touch the trees. Like I don't even want to tell you my relationship with trees. Yep. I cannot see a tree cut down. It will really bother me. I feel like I'm watching a person being killed.
No, I'd rather not. No, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And we get a cabin in the middle of nowhere and we're just meditating the whole time. And while we're there, she goes into her bag and she took out old illustration. Someone had drawn a picture of her dad and she showed it to me and I was like, oh my God, that's your dad. And she goes, I know. And I said, but no, you don't understand. That's the way I see him. Like exactly. That's the expression. That's the look on his face. That's the same shirt he always has on.
Wow.
And she said, well, a medium drew this. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, he's a medium who's a spirit artist. That's the word I'm looking for.
Awesome.
And the shirt was very distinctive. And here's why. The guy was worked in construction. He had his own business where he built houses. He was very successful. But he would always be a t-shirt, jeans, work boots kind of guy. You would never see him in a dress shirt. I saw him in the dress shirt. He had like 2 dress shirts and he would break them out at Christmas and Thanksgiving. So it was a joke. That was his Christmas shirt. So I saw him in his Christmas shirt. This other medium saw him in his Christmas shirt. So, and it was very distinctive for the era in which he wore it because it was the 90s and there was a particular style shirt that men had. And so I was like, I got to meet this guy. I have to find this guy who sees him exactly the way I see him. And so we looked him up on the internet and his website pops up. And it says in big letters on his website, now accepting applications for a 2-year mentorship program with Medium Joe. Wait, gets better. The deadline to apply is February 15th. That's my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So again, it's like divine intervention. It's coming into play. I have to. She's like, are you going to apply? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm doing it right now. And there's like this mini application. This application process was nothing like I've ever experienced. You submit an application to get the real application. And it's like this thick of essay questions that you have to fill out. What happens first? What happens second? What happens third? How do you differentiate psychic between mediumship? How do you do this? How do you know it's that? How do you know? He's not taking anybody who's not legit. So if you can't express it undeniably how these different things occur, and I'm only with somebody for 1 year. So I'm just going with what I really see and what I feel, and I'm just writing it down. And then the next part of the process is you get an interview. So I got the interview and then I heard nothing. Then I got another application and I had to fill out more information. And after all of that whole process, I never heard anything from them again. So I just figured I didn't get it. I'm not real. I'm not a medium. This is all in my head. And I'm all the way back to square one, doubting myself again. And I said to my wife, I said, I guess I didn't get it. And she's like, would you just stop? doubting yourself. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I called his assistant just to validate and find out that I did not get it. And I said, I guess I didn't get it. And she's like, oh, no. We didn't make any decisions yet. She's like, we were overwhelmed with applicants. There were over 100 applicants. And I was like, wow, okay. Thank you for your time. And I hung up the phone. Now, we're during the waiting process. Here's the thing. It's a 2-year program. So it costs thousands of dollars for the mentorship. This is not like a regular class that's, you just take and anybody can join. It's a mentorship. So I have 24/7 access to this man. And it costs several thousand. He's got hundreds of applicants. Do the math. Okay. He could have just accepted everybody, taken everybody in, and had a windfall of money, right? This is how I knew the integrity of this man showed me that I was going to be with him forever. I eventually did make the cut out of hundreds of people willing to pay thousands of dollars. He accepted 11 and I was number 11.
Wow.
And I don't know that I could do that. Turn away that much money. And it wasn't that the other people weren't real. It was just that he couldn't prove to himself that they were real because they didn't have the answers that he was looking for. Right.
Or they didn't resonate with them. Right.
Right. And perhaps it's the phone call or whatever the process is, how he does his process. He could only assure that 11 were legit. And he was only going to take the ones that he knew for a fact. And all the others, like they understand the lingo and they've done readings and I don't know a damn thing. I'm just sitting there like a dummy, but this just comes completely natural to me. And he'll be like, okay, Ray, you read. And I'm like, what? Get a link. Let's go. A link? Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I got a link. And then I do, and I just start, I got this person, blah, 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 blah. I always close my eyes. And don't you know, every time I read for him, like it was one of his deceased,
Right.
which was so strange. But he and I just had this uncanny connection. And so it was a 2-year program, and I'm happy to say I'm in my 5th year of a 2-year program. I never want to graduate, and I told him that. I'm never leaving you. And he just taught us so much. To this day, he teaches me so much about so many different things, not just mediumship, about integrity, being a good person, just, how to, the art of manifestation. I can go on and on and on and on and on with the things that he's taught me. And he was like the dad I didn't have, and I told him that. I said, you taught me more in 2 months than I got from my father ever. And I just love my mentors so much, and I hope that they know that. Like I said, I don't want to graduate. I don't want to, because I don't do this for a living. It's not it's not my calling, I don't believe, but I need to understand it because it's a part of me. I went down a different path. But that was the first book, and it takes you from the very beginning days until I realized that this is real, and I concede to the fact that I am what I am, and I figure out what I am, and I'm a believer, and that's brings us to chapter 2.
Yeah. That's so awesome. That is so awesome. It just shows the importance of finding the right people in your life to connect you to your soul's purpose, or just the soul's growth, right? That you can't give up, even though you think you have it all figured out, and you just can't give up because we don't know what that next twist or turn.
Exactly. Speak up. And even if you have 100 people tell you you're crazy, that one person that says you're not, says, come with me and guide you, will change your life. You just have to seek that person, that mentor, and find that person. For me, it was my wife, and my wife introduced me to others from there. And I had such faith in her that I would have done anything she told me. I still do anything she tells me. So,
she's your catalyst. She's your catalyst, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Her and her dad. And imagine, of all the people that I speak to, it's my father-in-law. That's not that. I could tell you so many stories just about that. There's so many of them in the book where he is just like, overprotective dad. I actually, true story. I asked him for her hand in marriage before I proposed.
Oh,
I did.
That's a book in itself. I can just see ghost proposal.
I did.
Yeah.
So
Ghost
awesome. So this is just fascinating. So what is your purpose? What do you do now? What do you do with all these gifts that you have always had and finally realized and have taken them on board and embraced your gifts?
Yeah. So after I met my second mentor, I started to, after about a year, maybe 2 years in with him, I think it was about a year in, I started to read everything I could get my hands on. And I also went back to school for metaphysics. I went to college again. I got a master's degree in metaphysics. I'm working towards my doctorate now as we speak. And I also read voraciously. And I read everybody from Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, every Eastern, type of, I don't want to call them religions, but beliefs. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I also read Freud. I read Carl Jung in the psychology world, being that my wife is from that, psychology. And then I studied Nikola Tesla and Einstein and Niels Bohr and Hubble and all the great rock star physicists. And this is what I started to find out. Since I am the biggest skeptic in the world, right? All these things were happening to me, and yet I was skeptical of myself. I had to put something together where I could take science and spirituality and put them together to make them believable for anybody, just the regular person who could accept this as being real. And that's what the second book is. It's scientific spirituality. So if you want to really understand the law of attraction is very popular right now. So I use it as an example. If you really want to understand how that works from a physical perspective, using vibration and frequency and energy, I break it down in the book. I also tell the story of how I used it multiple times and how it saved me in different circumstances. But then I also give you the other side. This is how it works. This is what I learned from Tesla and Einstein and how they explained how this actually works, because they did. And that's as I was writing this second book, at the end of it, I had several spiritual awakenings, and I think we all do. We have many, many on the road to enlightenment.
Yes.
And I'm not enlightened by any means.
No,
I'm a work in progress. But I've had this massive awakening during this writing of the second book where I fractured my ego to the point where I had lost my negative emotions, and I was no longer reactive. Remember, coming from a home of chaos, my go-to emotion was anger, always, for everything. If I was sad, I was angry.
Emotion, right?
It was the one I knew. It was the one I could navigate, right? So it was the one that I would always go to. And I was training myself using techniques that I learned from many different people, how to fracture that ego and retrain the brain not to be reactive, get rid of the egoic mind and not have it have so much control over me. So what happened, the story was, and this is also in the book, I call it the deer moment. And it was a moment when I realized this. I was leaving my wife's house. We weren't married yet. I was leaving her house and I was going to my house, and I had about a 45-minute drive. And it was going to be a blizzard outside, and it had just started to snow. So I wanted to get a jump on things, and I left. So the snow started to come down really heavy while I was driving, and I got lost. I missed the turn, but I'm driving very slow and I'm trying to find my way. And a deer runs out in front of my car, and I hit the deer. Now, the old Ray would have been livid. I was driving what was a very expensive car, because at that time I thought it was a big deal. When I bought it, that was like a status. My father had a fancy car. I had to have a fancy car. And now I realize that is meaningless. And I'll show you in a second. So I hit the deer, And normally the adrenaline would flow, my head would be ready to burst open, and I would have every swear word coming out of my mouth. And none of that happened at all. I was calm, I was relaxed, and I felt compassion for the deer. That's all I was worried about, was the deer. And I didn't know who the hell I am, but there was nothing. I accepted that you can't go back in time. There's nothing you can do. So I got out of the car and I tried to help the deer up. And don't you know, the deer got up
Oh, yay.
and looked at me, and I looked at it. I've never been that close. Like, I was like this far away, like inches from the deer. And we're looking at each other. And I said in my mind, I'm sorry. and she walked away. And I was like, I can't believe it's even alive, let alone able to walk away. And then I looked at myself, and I'm fine. And I realized in that moment, this is so much better than getting angry. And it happened naturally. Like, I didn't have to train myself over and over like I had been doing. It happened completely naturally. And I looked at the car, and the car was just trashed. But I didn't care. I did not care. It was a piece of tin. The deer and me were fine. Those are the important things. And no one else was hurt. No one else was even around. So I drove the car. It was drivable. And I drove it to a body shop instead of bringing it home. And I was about to call my wife and tell her what happened. And I said, well, why would I call her? To upset her? That's me dumping my stuff onto her. It might make me feel better, but it's not going to make her feel better. So I didn't tell her. And I put the car in the body shop, and I Ubered home. And I got home and I went to sleep. I didn't lose any sleep. I woke up the next morning. My kid got up first and he says, Dad, somebody stole your car. Somebody stole your car. And I was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. What time is it? He's like, it's 6 o'clock, but your car's gone. Your car's gone. And I was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I had an accident. What? You had an accident? You didn't call me? Are you okay? Is everybody okay? And he's like freaking out. And I'm like, no, I didn't tell you because of this. I didn't want you to react like this. Everything is fine. He goes, what do you mean it's fine? And I tell him the story, and I tell him what happened, and I tell him the car's wrecked. And he's like, who are you? And what have you done with my father?
Perfect.
That's awesome.
He's like, God, I wish you were like this when I was 5. Because he's like, approaching 20 at that time. And he doesn't even recognize me. He goes, this would have been really good. And I'm like, I'm sorry,
better late than never. It's all
yeah. I said, I for anything I've ever said or done, I'm sorry if I messed you up. I tried to give you everything better than my parents gave me, and I did. But I was far from perfect. And I remember, and then I later told my wife about what happened. She was the same thing. She's like, what do you mean you didn't call me? And I was like, because I don't want you to react. I don't want you to be upset. Everything is fine. The deer's fine. I'm fine. I don't know who I am anymore, but other than that, this kind of feels good. So I'm going to go with it. And I remember getting acupuncture that day, and I was telling the story to my acupuncturist, and she's crying. She's just sobbing. And I'm like, she goes, it's such a beautiful story. I said, why are you crying? She goes, it's a beautiful story. And I said, well, yeah, but I don't know who the hell I am anymore. She goes, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. And I was like, okay. And I just went back to my acupuncture, and I went back to work. And I was like floating on clouds from then on. Like, nothing bothered me. Things at work, I had my employees would be like, are you okay? And I'm like, I've never been better. What do you need? Here, sure. Whatever you need, here it is. And my life changed. And so that's what I do now, is I try to help other people have that type of an awakening and get to that place so that they can experience that. And I went back and I rewrote the book. So I put it in terms that, follow the steps, and hopefully you will experience what I experienced. So it's a combination of what happened to me, and then how you can recreate it and make it happen for you. And I do private coaching.
When are you going to put it into audiobook so I can listen to it?
Okay, so yeah, the first one is on audio. The second one will be on audio I want to say a couple of weeks. It's not going to be me reading it this time,
Oh, that's
but
too bad because you got a great voice.
Thank you. But if I did that, it would be more than 6 months out. And I can always redo it in the future and read it. Because I know I like to listen to audiobooks where the author reads it too. I like that also.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I'll work on that.
Yeah, it's great. So people can get in touch with you through your website and
RayCatania.com.
Yeah, and all the information is attached to this video or podcast, depending on how you're watching it today. And so you offer classes, or how do you offer classes?
So you can sign up on my website and just become a subscriber, so that when there's a class, you'll be notified that there's a class. And then there's also the other option of one-on-one coaching that you can also do with me as well. There's a different application for that, and everything can be found on the website. And the 2 books are available in 62 countries in all formats. The second book will be out in audio, and then everything will be available everywhere. And I thank you for allowing me to say that.
That's awesome, because I just, bought it on my Audible. So I love listening to audiobooks, especially by authors. I always listen to their voice first, though. But no, that's awesome. I find that audiobooks for me, because I'm a hearing person, goes in. I see the pictures like you do, but you can
feel from the author, like, especially if you're in tune with energy like you are, you get the whole picture just from that voice and from hearing it. So I promised at some point in time, I will read the second book. I really want to. It's just a time thing right now.
That's so incredible. We've really enjoyed, and our audience has enjoyed your stories. You're just a great storyteller. It's awesome. Thank you so much. Just a few quick questions at the end. So when you go do your TED Talks or whatever, your Blue Talks or whichever talks you want to do, are you going to come out to your theme song? What would that be?
Oh my goodness. Here's that tough question.
I know, that's a tough question.
Oh my God. I'm at a loss with the song. It has to be, oh my gosh. Maybe something like I Did It My Way.
I almost did that. Okay, yeah.
You know what I was thinking?
Frank Sinatra.
Yeah,
I Did It My Way.
I was thinking Staying Alive, because no matter how many deaths,
that's good.
You made it.
That's good. Really good. You know what? I like that's better. I'm going to use that one. Yeah.
Staying Alive. Awesome. Yeah. Because your work wasn't done, obviously, no matter what you thought, and going into the light, your guide said, go back. You can get it. You can get it right. So awesome.
That's good.
And, we're big crystal fans here. I mean, Teresa and I both have our collection. What you have a couple that you have felt drawn to in your life?
Oh, yeah. Clear quartz is my favorite. It used to be obsidian, because I believe that was protection, and I always felt like I needed that protection. Now I gravitate more towards clear quartz. By far that's my favorite at this moment in time. And there is another one that escapes me. Maybe you can tell me the name of it. It's kind of yellowish in color. It symbolizes, what did you say?
Citrine?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's it.
a quartz. That's a quartz. Yeah, it's a really joyful stone. It's just like abundance and joyful, and yeah.
My wife has a crystal collection, and those are the 3 that I'm always. That's it right there. You got it.
Yeah,
yes.
Your wife sounds like she was just sort of just waiting for you to come along to just like, okay.
I think we both really complemented each other's lives in such a way that we'll never be the same again. Yeah. Neither of us.
That's an awesome. I love seeing that pairing. That's just an awesome pair. And she, of course, came from the scientific psychology, but it's so interesting that she was in tune to the spiritual world and knew she was seeking that beforehand, before she met you.
Did not see that coming at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
We often laugh, like if we have an argument or disagreement, I'm like, okay, so, we'll just break up. I'll just see you in the next life anyway. You're not going anywhere.
That's right. You're joined at the hip.
There's no sense in us, arguing, because, we're just going to be together for this lifetime, next lifetime. So I'm kidding, of course.
So obviously you've had lots of encounters with an extra dimensionals. Have you ever seen sort of like lights in the sky or anything else, like a UFO, what you would deem, or your wife maybe has seen them out in the woods there?
What I have seen is when I see an image of what looks like a human, I believe this to be, and this is just a hypothesis, I believe that to be in the very next realm. And then the if we call that the fourth realm, we'll call the next one the fifth. And I believe that's where my guides are. And this is where I don't see human form. I just see lines of energy. And these energetic lines can speak to me. Now, we can... some people say that they are extraterrestrial, and they may not be guides. We might have that confused. I don't know. All I can tell you is that there's different planes of existence that we can communicate with if we try hard enough and we work on it. And I think that we all have different terminology, but we're, at the end of the day, we're all talking about the same thing. We just use different words to describe it. At that level, they have no bodies. I don't know if they're male or female. I don't know if they know that. I don't think there is male or female at that level, but they are the ones that I think reached enlightenment on Earth school, as one of my clients called it. And I love that word, Earth school. And it's kind of like when you graduate, you don't go to that fourth anymore. You go directly to that fifth. And now you're somebody's guide, somebody's master. You're helping others now. And then I think that's what helps you reach your next level, whatever that is. I don't know. And again, don't beat me up. I'm just
come back and report.
This is all speculate. Right. Yeah. I'm just speculating. I don't, this one, I don't have anything to back it up yet, but I'm working on it. That's just my theory.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Teresa, any final questions or anything?
No, I know we're close to time. After the show, I wanted to share with you a part of a past life of yours I've seen.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So stay on. Go off.
Okay.
So, hey, everybody stick with us and come back on next week. We'll have a different guest altogether. And Brittany's going to come and join us. And I'm not sure what she's talking to us about, but she's from the Breakthrough Show Network. And we're looking forward to meeting Brittany. So we'll see you next Sunday, everyone. Until then, have a great week and God bless.
Namaste.
Cheers.